Alright then.
Alright.
One, two, three.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of I Read This Book. My name is Sarthak Bharadwaj.
And my name is Nishant Mittal.
And today we are going to talk about an extraordinary book called Black Swan, written by Nicholas Taleb. Now, Taleb is a person that Nishant has read extensively and he recommends it to most people that he talks to. So Nishant, why don't you start by telling me about who is Taleb?
So, Nicholas Nassim Taleb was an options trader. What that means is there are different financial instruments like stocks, shares, options, futures, and options, and so he was an options trader.
Okay.
And being an options trader, his strategy of investment, his thesis was extremely different. So his thesis was that he's gonna bet on improbable events, very improbable events. So as a trader, as a regular trader, what you want to do is you want to buy low and sell high, right?
Essentially.
That's essentially the trading business. But he had this beautiful thesis where he would bet on extremely improbable events and a lot of them, and if he lost small, but if any of those events happened,
He won big.
he won big. So when he got his intellectual vindication in 1987 market crash, that's when he says, as a trader, as a person, he got fuck you money. So that's a term which he says, it's like enough money to say fuck you to anybody and do what you want to do. So he's a philosopher, and what he is giving to us in the form of Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, Skin in the Game, Fooled by Randomness, is essentially philosophy. And philosophy's Hindi translation is Darshan Shastra. Darshan Shastra means principles of looking. So principles of looking, principles of seeing. So what he's giving us is a new way to see things. Look at Black Swan strategy, as I told you, the strategy of investments. He's betting on improbable events. What he's essentially doing, he's disregarding, he's acknowledging his lack of knowledge for the unpredictable. He admits that he doesn't know if these unpredictable events will happen.
And that's why they're unpredictable.
But he knows that they can happen. So he puts small amount of money in those risky strategies, loses small, wins big. And these unpredictable events, even though they are unpredictable, happen every now and then.
Such as?
1987 crash, 2008 crash, .com burst in 2000. So if you look at 1987 to 2010, you are looking at
Black Swan.
multiple wars,
Ah.
multiple stock market crashes, and so many different things which have led to disproportionate value generation for people. And all that happens because one admits that he doesn't know. He doesn't try to predict. Instead, what he says is, I can't predict, but I know that if this thing happens, it can either be good for me or bad for me. And then that's what you place your bet on. If it's good for you, you expose yourself to it. If it's gonna kill you, like Fukushima did, that was a Black Swan event. Nobody was predicting it, but it happened and it ended up giving a lot to the world.
Very interesting. So, how did you stumble across Taleb and Black Swan? Because these books, I think, are not at least in the Indian market. I don't think Taleb is quite popular, or is he? Maybe.
He is, because Taleb is thankfully very respected in the financial community, because Black Swan is talking about unpredictable events and he's telling people that to not follow the kind of people who predict things like economists, financial analysts, and all sorts of academic intellectuals. He says, stay away from those guys, for the love of God. Don't follow those guys. They're going to lead you to death.
But how did
2008,
Yeah. Okay.
1 year after this book got released,
Oh.
the market crashed. It's like gospel truth was spoken, and he got yet another intellectual vindication when the market crashed. So I stumbled upon Taleb when I was very young, relatively. I was reading a lot of non-fiction in my college days, first or second year, and I stumbled upon a book called Fooled by Randomness by Taleb. I didn't like that book at all. because what that book started was with the fact that, hey, don't take knowledge too seriously. Whatever you're going to learn here, you could not be able to, you could or could not use it in your life. Take this book as an intellectual refreshment. And I was so passionate, I was so serious about my life then I was like, I don't want to waste my time in entertainment, you know. I thought I'll read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point and I'll just tip. Or I'll read Outlier, I'll become an outlier, I'll just practice for 10,000 hours and become the cheetah of that race. But the point is, I didn't like Talib then. Okay, and then years later, after facing a lot of good things and bad things in life, I was reading What the Dog Saw by Malcolm Gladwell, the collection of essays. And in that essay, he outlined the exact strategy and he wrote an essay on Talib.
Oh,
And this exact
Malcolm Gladwell.
Malcolm Gladwell. And in this thing, the investment strategy that I told you about and how it has led to the snowball. And I was like, this is so beautiful. And then I read Skin in the Game, and then Anti-Fragile, and I had read Black Swan but not completely, and so I thankfully finished the book. That's how I
So
stumbled upon.
that's wonderful. But what is Black Swan essentially about? Now you have talked a little about it, but in very concrete and clear terms,
Yes, yes.
what does this book talk about?
Sure. So, let's say your Black Swan is an unpredictable event which happens, and then it's very easy to theorize and explain. So a lot of experts are gonna come to you and tell you that this was inevitable.
And like reverse engineering.
Reverse engineer, the post-dictive rationalization which happens after those events. The mammoth events change the course of history for whoever is involved, but extremely explainable after they happen. That's a Black Swan. So let's say a chicken. A chicken is, he gets to befriend, she gets to befriend a human. A human feeds that chicken. They develop a very good relationship. Chicken feels that the human is somebody she can rely on, like a friendly neighborhood politician. Until that Wednesday of Thanksgiving, when she gets cut and gets transformed into a turkey, she faces that moment of truth where she has to reconsider her entire life choice. That's a Black Swan for the chicken. Nothing's gonna be the same. Her thoughts, and she's not gonna be the same. She, from a chicken, will be a turkey. Let's come into a human example. Let's say there's a guy who's happily in a relationship, and it's a long relationship. He loves his girl, and everything is very nice, and they're practically gonna marry someday, and everything is nice until suddenly the girl drops him, and he finds out that she was cheating on him with her very good friend and her ski instructor, and that's a Black Swan. Now the guy can't live like it's like Anno Domini for him, right? It's BC and AD at the time of the Lord. He can't live with this information. His life has changed totally, but everybody can explain that this happened. Okay, this was meant to be. This was going to happen. So that's a Black Swan. And unlike the chicken, that guy has got to live with this shit for the rest of his life.
So, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, considering your latter example, if there are examples in recent history of an event happening which is of the similar sort, would that event still be considered Black Swan?
It could be a grey swan. A Black Swan is totally unpredictable.
Totally unpredictable.
Yeah.
Never happened before.
Not necessarily never happened before. Market crashes have happened before. Wars have happened before. But something you don't see coming. You see it's not gonna happen. But then, let's say the 7-nation alliance against Israel. So Israel was fighting a war, and everybody thought that okay, Israel was obviously fighting a war. But then all the nations around Israel actually came together and attacked. So nobody saw it coming. But when that happened and Israel eventually won the war, but after that happened, everybody was easily being able to rationalize it, that you had so many signals, so many threats. No, people don't know that those threats were always there.
Yeah.
They used to get 10 of those false alarms every day, right? But that's a Black Swan. So you get it. I mean,
I do understand, but could you possibly give some examples of what could be considered as Black Swan events in India?
Black Swan event in India. So
I know it's. I mean, it's difficult to think.
of course, it's very difficult to think, but let me think. So Black Swan event in India could be
Could the stupendous election win of the India government in 2014
Yeah,
be
so that
considered?
is actually considered as a black swan, but again, it could be considered as a black swan. They were supposed to win. Everybody
Right.
was thinking that they are gonna win,
But-
but with that majority.
Yeah.
Now that was considered, that was thought of as a black swan event, but to be honest, a lot of people saw it coming. Like I saw it coming. I was, a lot of people were thinking that this is gonna happen, and Donald Trump's win.
Could that?
Yes, that was a black swan. So even though there were a lot of people who were rooting for him,
But his approval ratings were low and.
everything was low, but he won,
Exactly.
and that was a black swan. So that is something that people are sure that's not gonna happen, and something like this, and suddenly it happens, and that then so what Black Swan the book is about, how to not be that chicken
Ah.
or that guy I told you about. How do you?
I feel I know that guy. We all do.
We all do, but it's just like how to not be that guy or that chicken.
I'm surely gonna read that book now.
Yes,
It's
exactly. It's
No, because
so what happens is, how do you become that book, that guy, or that chicken? When you are predicting things,
Mm.
when you're taking your predictions too seriously, when you have a prediction model, and you think that world is gonna obey that prediction model, however scientific or mathematical it is, you think it's gonna happen, but what you see at the end of the day is that the world doesn't care about your models. World is filled to the brim with millions of possibilities. Some of them might just be black swans. So what he says is, it's better to live a life as a trader or as an entrepreneur, as an artist, to expose yourself, to consider that things are going to happen which you don't predict. Things are going to happen beyond your predictions. Your plans are going to fail. Just accept it as the first step. The next step you take is, just know that there are going to be unpredictable events that happen to you. Can they be good for you? Can they be bad for you? If they are bad for you, you avoid them. If they are good for you, you expose yourself to them. So whenever a top class founder, entrepreneur, investor calls me, I should just drop everything and go to meet him, regardless of what might happen. Regardless of why he has called me. He might just be calling me to teach his girl guitar because she's 18, or whatever the is on his mind, but I should drop everything and go. But should I go out doing bike stunts without wearing a helmet? No,
obviously.
because the incremental award of doing that activity would be a regular life, but a negative black swan would be my crushing of my spine. You get it? So the philosophy is that, hey, your models are stupid. You are stupid if you don't believe that your models are stupid. So just consider that your models are stupid. Be smart. Consider unpredictability as a part of your life. Classify it as two possibilities. One unpredictability that leads you to somewhere. Another unpredictability that leads you to hell. Avoid this one. Take this one. So as an options trader, what he used to do was barbell strategy. 85% of his money used to go to US treasury bills, as safe as bet as possible. 15% extremely risky. No middle risk elements in the portfolio. Which is thoroughly against the portfolio theory developed by the intellectuals. Economists, Nobel winning economists. So he busts all Nobel laureates of economics, Nobel laureates and economics in this book. And he says that don't listen to those guys. There are fields which have experts, there are fields which don't have experts. And your life, social science, political science, economics are fields where there are no experts.
Well, interesting. Now, since the entire discourse in Black Swan by Taleb is about the unpredictability of events, and like you just said, he feels that do not listen to experts in some fields because there is no assurance that they might be entirely true.
They will be wrong.
They will be wrong.
Yeah.
Now, what is to say that Taleb is correct?
Taleb, that's what he says, right? What he's like the central thesis of his book is that I am not predicting anything.
I'm explaining.
I'm telling you that whatever predictions that you face are gonna be either right or wrong. So you expose yourself to the right and do not expose yourself to the negative black swans. That's what he's saying.
Mm.
He says this is a philosophy which will always ring true. You know, regardless of what happens in the economy, regardless of what happens, you know, he says by all means plan a picnic. Okay? Plan a movie. But do not plan the economic forecast of 2040. Do not plan, you know,
Yeah, I
you
understand.
get it, the big things in life.
Mhm.
Because the big things in life, in economic life, in financial life, in your artistic life, entrepreneurial life, would be extremely unpredictable. I might just meet Ananya Birla tomorrow and become a huge star.
Now that's certainly a Black Swan event. I've understood. In 12 minutes. Anyway.
Exactly.
So, you know, I have been following Taleb on Twitter for a while now. And I have found that he's an extremely humorous man. Does that translate in his writings?
Hilarious.
And so I have a second part to this question also. Is this book readable by the general public who might not be well aware with options trading or what happens in global economy? Would they still connect with this book?
Look, to connect with this book, a person will have to have some level of intellectual humility. Humility. What that means is that everything he's gonna say is going to probably offend you. Because he's saying very contrarian things. So, 21-year-old me or 22-year-old me, whenever I read the first book of Taleb, I didn't like it because I had already read a few things and I was actually impressed by those things and I wanted to believe that those things were true. You know?
Yeah.
But when I read Taleb, he said, don't listen to the bullshit. They are scam artists. The same books I had read. You know? And I couldn't take, for the life of me, I couldn't be appreciative of that because his language is hilarious. His style is offensive to the kind of people he calls out Nobel laureates and tells you that they're fraud.
My goodness.
And he tells you straight away that this guy is fraud, and he by name, he doesn't like beat around the bush.
It would be funny if he receives the Nobel one day.
No. and you know, he is actually, man, it's unbelievable how beautiful he writes, man. Because I've read a few things I consider myself a reader, marathon reader. No, I haven't read anything. Reading anything from Taleb makes you humble about your knowledge. Makes you know that you don't know.
I see.
And that's very important. So I personally believe, regardless of how you want to absorb this should be a mandatory read.
I see.
Books by Malcolm Gladwell, books by Taleb, books by Michael Lewis, they should be in the curriculum of kids. Because it's not, the people are missing out on extremely, extremely important things by not knowing about these guys. Everybody should know about these things.
Now, we've had a wonderful conversation. So, my final question to you would be, now since you've very vehemently said that these books by Malcolm Gladwell, by the likes of Malcolm Gladwell and Nicholas Taleb.
Only three people I quote, Malcolm Gladwell, Nassim Taleb and Michael Lewis.
Wonderful.
Three people.
So books by these three people should be in the curriculum of students and should be read by everyone.
Yes.
Now, if you were to give this book to someone, what is the one thing? This has kind of become like a trademark signing off question.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person? Like, hey, this is Black Swan written by Taleb. You should read this. Why?
Okay. So I will say what Nassim Taleb says at the end of the book.
Okay, yeah.
You are a black swan.
Oh.
You are a beautiful phenomenon which has happened to my life. You are totally unpredictable but now explainable.
Oh.
And it's beautiful that you exist. Just you. You exist. Whatever you're doing is extremely beautiful. And I'm so glad. Read this book. Please.
Hey,
because it will
can
make
I
you
just start
appreciate.
reading it right now?
Please read. I never do this. These are stick
Yeah, yeah,
notes. I've never touched stick notes in my life for books, but there are passages
Which
which
are so beautiful.
which are so beautiful. Now, can I read one? Just one?
Sure.
If it's already a long conversation, but I'd like to read one just because I'm feeling it really.
Go for it, man.
Thank you so much. uh, it talks about artists, okay? About.
Doesn't matter. This bit is going to be edited anyway.
Yeah, no problem. No, this is actually important. It's very impressive. I can't find it yet. I have.
Is that a Black Swan event?
Okay. Shit, I can't find it. But anyway, it
Maybe we can put that in the description below.
yeah,
and
please.
people
I will
can-
just please. Talib is not paying me. He doesn't need to pay me.
He doesn't even know that Nishant Mittal exists.
Yes,
living in the suburbs of New Delhi.
So, but please read this book. This is what I'm gonna say. And my favorite book still by Talib remains Anti-Fragile.
Anti-Fragile.
Number
Which
one.
you have given to me and is lying in the
Yes,
bookshelf.
please read it.
I'll get around to it.
Yeah. This was the 5th episode of I Read This Book. We are so glad that we are doing it. It's we never thought it'll come so far. And we get a lot of messages from people who really appreciate what we're doing, and they like the discussion and everything. They tell us a lot of things that we should do. They give a lot of feedback, but on messages. Please don't message us. I mean, please do, but please put those things on comments.
Yeah, what that does is that helps us beat the YouTube algorithm that allows our video to reach more people. And
Oh, and over and above that, I mean, what that actually helps us with is that it makes the conversation more engaging. A lot of people then try to come forward because they've seen that it's being engaged with the content. So just put that in comment and see you again.
I mean, if you like this video, share it and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like the video, please tell us in the comments. Criticize us, abuse us, do whatever you want, but tell us about it in the comments.
In comments, not in messages. Don't send me
Messages पे
messages.
मत बता